Alcohol isn't the problem, it's the shortcut. And once your brain learns that shortcut, it starts asking for it on autopilot. Today, he's going to show exactly how that happens and how to take control back. He's seen it 1,000 times. A hard day, tight chest, loud thoughts, and that familiar craving whispering, just one. It feels like coping. It feels like relief. It even feels like confidence until the next morning when stress returns, anxiety bites harder, and the habit quietly tightens its grip. Here's the truth most people miss. Alcohol doesn't just change your mood. It trains your reward system, reshapes your identity, and turns numbness into a ritual that feels normal. But the moment he understands the psychology behind drinking, he stops blaming himself and starts seeing the pattern. Trigger, reward, repeat. And once you can see the pattern, you can break it, replace it, and rebuild a calm that doesn't come with debt. He doesn't notice the handoff at first, because it's quiet. One night it's just a little alcohol to take the edge off. The next week it's the same pour, same chair, same routine, same habit. And somehow the glass stops being a choice and starts being a checkpoint. Stress shows up, and the bottle is already waiting, like a loyal friend. That's the trick. It feels like comfort, not control. But control rarely kicks the door down. It tiptoes in wearing slippers. He tells himself it's coping, like a grown-up version of a warm blanket. Yet the blanket gets heavier, and his identity shrinks under it. And deep down, he can feel that relief is starting to negotiate. He thinks he's steering, but the road signs are subtle. If the day was good, alcohol becomes the reward. If the day was bad, alcohol becomes the rescue. Either way, the brain learns one lesson. This is the shortcut. So when anxiety flares, the craving doesn't feel like desire. It feels like necessity. That's how a habit stops being a habit and turns into a rule. He laughs and says, I can stop any time, and sure, he can tomorrow. But tomorrow keeps moving like a finish line on wheels. Meanwhile, numbness becomes the goal. Not joy, not peace, just less feeling. And the price of less feeling shows up when he least expects it. A mentor would tell him this. Power is measured in the smallest moments, not the big promises, not the dramatic speeches, just the tiny decisions, like the moment he reaches for the bottle before he even checks in with himself. He can practice a simple pause, wait 10 minutes, then decide. In those 10 minutes, he takes a walk, drinks water, texts a friend, real coping. He writes one sentence, right now, I feel because. It sounds almost too easy, but that's the point. Simple beats dramatic. Because stress loves chaos, and chaos loves quick alcohol fixes. He isn't trying to be perfect, he's trying to stay in the driver's seat. And staying in the driver's seat starts with noticing the hand reaching out. Here's a metaphor he'll understand. Alcohol is like hiring a temporary assistant. At first, it helps him relax, smooths the edges, quiets anxiety. But then the assistant starts making decisions without asking. Skip helping tomorrow, it whispers. Just feel better now. And the reward becomes a trap. Relief now, regret later, repeat. He begins to measure nights by how numb he can get, not how alive he feels. He wakes up with fog, then more stress, then more craving. Same loop, new day. That's why relapse happens so easily. The brain remembers the shortcut perfectly. Not because he's weak, because the habit was trained like muscle memory. And muscle memory doesn't care about motivation. It cares about repetition. So the mentor's move isn't to shame him. It's confirmation with a challenge. Yes, alcohol can feel like control. But control isn't a feeling. It's a pattern. If his pattern is drink to feel normal, that's not normal. That's dependency. He can swap one small piece, change the ritual before changing the substance. A different glass, a flavored seltzer, a late-night tea break the habit script. He can put the bottle farther away than his emotions, just for tonight. He can build identity with one sentence: I'm someone who faces stress awake, because numbness steals more than pain. It steals clarity, pride, and direction. And when the craving says, this is confidence, he should listen closely, because confidence on alcohol often comes with a bill, and that bill is next. He's not chasing chaos. He's chasing a version of himself that feels easier to be. With a little alcohol in his system, his shoulders drop, his voice loosens, the world stops judging him so loudly. He becomes funny, smooth, brave, like someone turned up the brightness on his personality. But that confidence is borrowed, and borrowed things always come with terms. The brain loves the reward: instant relief, instant glow, instant I'm fine. And the habit forms quietly. Anxiety shows up. Drink. Numbness. Temporary victory. Except the victory doesn't last. It just reschedules the fight for later, because when the buzz fades, stress returns with receipts, and it brings friends. He wakes up with that weird emotional debt, heavier mood, thinner patience, thicker fog, and he starts needing a drink just to feel like the person he used to be. A mentor would call this confidence on credit. It's like walking into a room with someone else's expensive suit. You look sharp, you feel taller, you speak louder, but you're also terrified someone will tap your shoulder and say, "Hey, that's not yours." So you keep wearing the suit, because now the fear of being seen without it is worse than the discomfort. That's how craving becomes psychological, less about alcohol, more about identity protection. He isn't just drinking, he's trying to avoid the version of himself that feels awkward, tender, uncertain, and the brain reinforces it. Drink equals safe, sober equals exposed. This is why relapse often happens after social pressure, conflict, or loneliness. It's not just a habit, it's a coping strategy that got promoted to emergency system. And once something becomes an emergency system, it feels impossible to turn off. So here's a practical pivot that actually works in real life. Instead of quitting confidence, he starts building sober confidence in tiny reps. He chooses one low-risk social moment a week: coffee with a friend, a short event, a quick hello at a gathering. He walks in with one simple mission: ask 2 questions and listen like he means it. That's it. No performance, no be the funny one, no pressure to shine. He practices a line that saves people. Give me a second, I'm thinking. He learns that confidence isn't loud, it's steady. And steady confidence comes from not running, not from alcohol-fueled speed. If anxiety spikes, he uses a physical anchor: feet on the ground, slow breath, shoulders down, because the body can teach the mind that it's safe without numbness. He also needs to understand the hidden cost: emotional interest. When he borrows confidence from alcohol, he pays interest in irritability, shame, and second-guessing. He replays conversations. Did I talk too much? Did I overshare? Was I annoying? That's the cruel twist. Alcohol promises social ease, then punishes him with anxiety afterward. And the brain, confused, suggests the solution: drink again to stop feeling that guilt. That's a loop, not a lifestyle. So the mentor's advice is blunt: don't treat anxiety with a tool that increases anxiety later. It's like using a credit card to pay off a credit card. Looks smart for a moment, then collapses. If he wants real confidence, he needs less escape, more skill. And skill is built sober, one rep at a time, not purchased in a bottle. Here's the last piece he can't ignore. The debt becomes emotional numbness. He drinks to feel bold, but he also starts feeling less joy, less drive, less clarity. And that's dangerous, because motivation dies quietly when the reward system gets hijacked. He stops chasing goals and starts chasing relief, and stress becomes the main character. So he replaces confidence on credit with confidence through practice. He keeps a simple list, 3 things he did sober that used to scare him. Small wins count. He reads something that trains the mind. Atomic Habits, James Clear, for habit mechanics. The Anxiety and Phobia Workbook, Edmund Bourne, for tools. He lifts weights or walks daily because movement is the most underrated anxiety medicine. And as he builds this new identity, he starts noticing something unsettling. The confidence wasn't the real reason he kept drinking. The real reason is what the drink was helping him not feel. He doesn't always drink alcohol because he wants to celebrate. Sometimes he drinks because he wants the noise inside his chest to shut up. Stress has a way of turning small worries into loud alarms, and anxiety can make a simple evening feel like a room with no air. So he reaches for numbness the way a drowning person reaches for a floating plank. It's not party behavior in that moment. It's coping. The brain notices the reward, fast relief, fewer feelings, softer edges. And that reward teaches the habit faster than any lecture ever could. Soon the craving isn't about taste, it's about silence. And silence can start to feel like the only safe place. A mentor would tell him something uncomfortable but freeing. Pain is information. Numbness feels like peace, but it's more like hitting mute on a smoke alarm. The alarm stops, sure, but the fire doesn't magically disappear. So the stress keeps burning in the background while alcohol makes him feel fine. Then the next day he wakes up and the anxiety is still there, sometimes louder. That's when relapse sneaks in, because the brain remembers the shortcut. It whispers, just one drink, just enough numbness to get through. And he believes it because the habit has proof. It worked before, but worked is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because what it really did was delay his healing, not deliver it. He can test this with a simple, almost ridiculous experiment. Before drinking, he writes down a name for what he's feeling: stress, anxiety, loneliness, anger, shame. Then he rates it from 1 to 10, like he's tracking a storm. He waits 15 minutes and tries one sober coping tool first. Just one. A slow walk outside, cold water on the face, a shower, a quick bodyweight workout, or he does a brain dump on paper. 3 minutes, no filter, no grammar, just truth. If he needs structure, he uses the worry time method from CBT workbooks. And if the craving is intense, he calls it what it is, a wave, not a command, because identity changes when he stops obeying every impulse. And the moment he sees the craving as temporary, he gains leverage. He also needs to understand the sneakiest part. Numbness steals the good stuff too. It doesn't only quiet pain, it dulls joy, curiosity, and motivation. That's why people say they feel flat, even when life looks okay. Alcohol can turn emotions into grayscale, and then he wonders why nothing excites him. The reward system starts preferring quick relief over meaningful progress. So the habit grows. Less effort, more escape, repeat. His identity subtly shifts into someone who can't relax without a drink. And that story becomes self-fulfilling because he stops practicing real regulation. The mentor move is to rebuild pleasure without numbness, on purpose. Tiny, clean rewards. A late-night tea, a favorite show, a workout high, a real conversation. Here's what helps him most: replacing numb with safe. He doesn't need to feel nothing. He needs to feel safe while feeling something. So he builds a nightly ritual that lowers stress without alcohol. Same time, same cue, but new action. Stretch, shower, journal, dim lights, phone away. He reads something that speaks to the nervous system, not just motivation. The body keeps the score. Bessel van der Kolk, or Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker. He treats sleep like a superpower because anxiety is louder when he's exhausted. He keeps a relapse plan that's simple: drink water, eat protein, text one person, go outside. Because when craving hits, complexity kills action. And as he practices this, he starts noticing a deeper question forming under the surface. If alcohol was buying him silence, what exactly was he trying not to hear? Because that's where the next topic lives. He thinks he's making a decision, but a lot of the time his brain is just running a script. Stress rises, anxiety tightens the chest, and the craving shows up like a trained dog. Not because he's weak, but because his reward system learned something brutally simple. Alcohol equals fast relief. The brain doesn't care if the relief is healthy. It cares if it's immediate. That's why a habit can form even in smart, disciplined people. A person can manage a career, pay bills, hit the gym, and still get trapped by shortcuts. Because shortcuts don't announce themselves as shortcuts. They show up as just tonight, just to unwind, just to sleep. And the moment relief becomes predictable, the brain starts demanding it. That demand feels like a craving, but it's really repetition speaking. A mentor would compare this to a path through tall grass. The first time he drinks to cope, it's like stepping into the field once. Nothing changes, no big deal, but every time he repeats it, he flattens the grass a little more. Soon that path becomes the easiest route, and the brain loves easy. It stops considering other options because the shortcut is already proven. So when stress hits, he doesn't think, what's the healthiest choice? He thinks, where's the fastest switch? That's why willpower alone fails. He's not fighting desire, he's fighting a groove. And grooves don't disappear by yelling at them, they disappear by building new paths. So the practical strategy is simple. Interrupt the loop before it completes. He identifies the 3 common triggers: time of day, emotion, and place. For many people it's 6 to 10 p.m., anxiety after work, and the kitchen or couch. So he changes one variable on purpose, just one, because that breaks the habit script. He moves the evening routine. Walk first, shower first, eat first, call someone first. He makes alcohol harder to access and healthier rewards easier to access. He keeps cold, sparkling water in the fridge, snacks with protein nearby, and a default activity ready. He sets a rule that sounds childish but works. No drinking until I've eaten and gone outside, because the brain can't shortcut what it can't reach. He also needs a replacement reward that doesn't feel like punishment. If he removes alcohol and replaces it with nothing, the craving will scream louder. So he gives the brain a new reward: movement, music, a hot shower, a small treat, a funny show. Not as self-indulgence, but as skill building. The goal is to teach the reward system that relief can come from other sources. Even better, he ties it to identity. I'm the kind of person who handles stress clean. He tracks tiny wins like a scientist, not a judge. Craving hit at 8:40, I walked 12 minutes, it dropped from 8:10 to 5:10. That data builds confidence because it proves he can reduce anxiety without numbness, and the more evidence he collects, the weaker relapse becomes, because the brain listens to proof more than promises. Now here's the part most people miss. The shortcut often hides inside a ritual. The glass, the ice, the chair, the show, the silence, those cues are powerful. So he edits the ritual like a filmmaker edits a scene. Same time of night, but a different drink in the same glass. Or the same show, but with tea and a blanket instead of alcohol. He's not losing pleasure, he's rewiring what pleasure looks like. And over time, the craving loses its authority because the cue no longer guarantees the reward. That's how you retrain a habit. Cue stays, reward changes, brain adapts. And as he does this, something surprising happens. He realizes the ritual wasn't only about relief, it was about belonging, connection, and the feeling of being allowed to relax, which pulls him straight into the next topic. He swears it's not the alcohol, It's the routine. Same hour, same glass, same finally I can breathe feeling. After a long day of stress, the ritual feels earned, like a paycheck in liquid form. The brain tags it as reward, and that tag is sticky. So when anxiety taps his shoulder, the habit answers before he does. He's not thinking, I want to drink. He's thinking, it's time. And it's time sounds harmless, until it starts sounding mandatory. That's how coping turns into a schedule, and schedules turn into cages. The scary part is how normal it feels, like brushing teeth, like dinner, until the night he can't do it, and the craving acts like an alarm. A mentor would tell him, rituals are powerful because they don't argue. They don't ask permission, they just happen like gravity. And alcohol rituals are especially sneaky because they're wrapped in self-care language. Unwind, take the edge off, just relax, as if numbness were the same as peace. But peace makes you stronger the next day. Numbness usually makes you foggier. He starts noticing little signs, impatience if plans change, irritation if the bottle isn't there. That's not enjoyment, that's dependence, wearing a polite smile. He tells himself, I'm just consistent, but consistency isn't always healthy. Even a bad habit can be consistent, and the brain will still call it comfort. And once comfort becomes identity, relapse stops being a risk and becomes a pattern. So he changes the ritual without starting a war with himself. He keeps the shape of the routine, but swaps the engine. Same glass, but sparkling water with lime. Same chair, but a heated blanket and tea. Same end-of-day signal, but a 10-minute walk first. Yes, even if it's cold. He doesn't negotiate with the craving. He redirects it like a toddler with scissors. He makes it easy. Drinks ready in the fridge, shoes by the door, playlist queued up. He puts a small rule in place, no alcohol until after I've eaten something real. Because hunger and stress make anxiety louder and willpower weaker every single time. This isn't punishment, it's friction in the right direction. And friction is how a habit starts losing its grip. He also learns the ritual is often a disguised emotion. Sometimes it's loneliness pretending to be relaxation. Sometimes it's anger pretending to be taking the edge off. Sometimes it's boredom pretending to be a reward. So he adds one tiny check-in before he pours. What do I actually need right now? If it's connection, he texts someone one honest line, no drama, just truth. If it's stress, he does 5 push-ups, a shower, or a slow stretch, anything that signals safety. If it's anxiety, he tries a guided breathing track or a short meditation from an app. And if he wants structure, he reads Atomic Habits, James Clear, to understand cues and rewards. Because when he understands the mechanics, he stops calling it mystery and starts calling it changeable. But here's the real upgrade. He stops letting the ritual define his identity. He stops saying, I'm the kind of person who needs a drink to relax, and he starts saying, I'm the kind of person who can regulate stress on purpose. That sounds cheesy, until he feels the confidence of doing it sober for 3 nights straight. The brain respects proof, and proof quiets craving more than motivation ever will. He tracks it like a coach. What triggered him, what he tried, what reduced anxiety. And when a relapse happens, he doesn't spiral into shame. He treats it like data, because shame fuels numbness, and numbness fuels the next drink. Still, one question keeps nagging at him in the quiet moments. If the ritual became a cage, what role has it been playing in who he thinks he is? Because that's exactly where the next topic goes. He doesn't wake up one day and announce, this is who I am now. It happens in tiny edits, like a photo getting slowly filtered. At first, alcohol is something he does, sometimes casually, socially. Then it becomes something he relies on when stress hits or anxiety spikes, and eventually, without realizing it, it starts sounding like a personality trait. I'm just someone who drinks. I'm the fun one. I need it to relax. That's the identity shift. The habit stops being an action and becomes a label. And once it's a label, the brain defends it like a home address. Because changing a habit is hard, but changing identity feels like losing yourself. So he keeps the pattern, not because he loves it, but because it feels familiar. A mentor would say, identity is the strongest cage and the strongest key. If he believes he's a drinker, his brain will search for reasons to drink. If he believes he's someone who copes clean, his brain will search for clean coping. Same life, different filter, different decisions. That's why relapse often feels personal, like failure, like weakness, like, see, this is me. But it's not proof of who he is. It's proof of what he practiced. And practiced things can be replaced with new practice, even if it's messy at first. He doesn't need a dramatic reinvention. He needs a steady rewrite. The goal isn't perfection. It's a new story that's easier to live inside, because the story he repeats becomes the life he repeats. So he starts using identity like a tool, not a verdict. He stops saying, I'm trying not to drink, which keeps alcohol as the center of gravity. He starts saying, I'm practicing being someone who handles stress without numbness. Notice the difference. Practice means progress, not punishment. He chooses one small identity proof every day, one action that supports the new label. A walk when anxiety hits, a glass of water before any decision, a real meal. He keeps a note on his phone. Evidence I can cope. 3 bullet points per week is enough. Craving at 9 p.m., shower plus music, fell asleep. Because the brain trusts evidence more than inspiration quotes, and identity changes fastest when the proof is undeniable. He also learns to protect his identity from social scripts. Friends might joke, come on, just one, like it's no big deal. But just one is rarely about alcohol, it's about belonging. So he prepares a simple line that keeps him in control without drama. Nah, I'm good, I'm sleeping better lately. Or, I've got an early morning. No speech, no confession, no debate, just a calm boundary. And if someone pushes, he remembers, pressure is information. The people who respect his boundary respect his growth. The people who don't? They're attached to the version of him that stays the same. A mentor would tell him, never sacrifice your future to keep someone comfortable. And here's the deeper move. He stops using shame as motivation. Shame doesn't build identity. It destroys it and then sells numbness as relief. So when he slips, he says, okay, that happened. What was the trigger? Stress, loneliness, hunger, conflict, exhaustion, usually one of those 5. He builds a relapse plan like a grown-up. Protein, water, sleep, sunlight, a call, movement. He reads The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg, to understand loops, and Atomic Habits, James Clear, to design change. He treats his brain like a system, not a moral failure. Because once identity becomes flexible, change becomes possible. And once he sees identity is being shaped in real time, one question starts to sting. What if the hardest part isn't quitting alcohol, but facing who he becomes when he's fully sober, which opens the door to the next topic? In public, alcohol looks like a harmless badge of belonging. It's in the jokes, the clinks, the cheers, the casual way people say, long day, I need a drink. He hears it so often, it sounds like common sense, like brushing your teeth. And the brain loves social permission because it lowers guilt and raises reward. If everyone's doing it, the habit feels safe, even when it isn't. So he drinks to match the room, to avoid being the odd one out. He calls it social, but sometimes it's anxiety wearing a party hat. The weird part is how fast the line moves. One drink becomes two becomes routine. And because it's celebrated, he doesn't notice the consequences building quietly. until he's alone. Then the private cost starts talking. A mentor would tell him, crowds can hide problems, not solve them. A loud room can make loneliness feel like it disappeared, but it's still there. He might be surrounded by people and still feel unseen, like a ghost with a drink. So alcohol becomes a bridge, artificial connection that feels real for a few hours. But the bridge doesn't lead anywhere solid. It drops him off back at himself. That's why the next day can feel emotionally empty. The dopamine reward fades, and he's left with stress, fog, and sometimes shame. And here comes the trap. He drinks again to fix the feeling created by drinking. That's not relaxation, that's a loop, and loops are sticky when they come with social approval. So he learns to separate fitting in from belonging. Fitting in is performing, belonging is being real. Alcohol often supports fitting in because it makes him louder, smoother, less self-aware. But real belonging doesn't require numbness. It requires honesty and comfort in your own skin. That's why a practical exercise helps. He chooses one social setting to be fully present, sober. Not forever, just once, like a test run. He focuses on being curious instead of impressive. He asks questions people love. What's been the best part of your week? What are you excited about lately? He listens like it matters because it does. And he realizes something funny. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves to judge him. He also upgrades his environment because environments shape habits more than motivation does. If every hangout revolves around alcohol, the craving will keep getting invited. So he adds one new space to his life where alcohol isn't the main character. A morning coffee spot, a hiking group, a gym class, a bookstore, a volunteer event. He swaps one night out for one morning win, and the reward system starts shifting. He looks for connection that doesn't come with a hangover or anxiety the next day. And if he wants books that help with real-life social confidence, he reads How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie and the Charisma Myth, Olivia Fox-Cabane. Not to manipulate, just to build comfort and skill without needing alcohol as training wheels. Because skill-based confidence lasts, and borrowed confidence always charges interest. And the more he builds sober connection, the less relapse feels inevitable. Then he faces a private truth that changes everything. Sometimes the drinking isn't about parties at all. Sometimes it's the quiet hours, the scrolling, the loneliness, the unspoken stuff. He's not trying to be wild. He's trying to not feel alone with his own thoughts. So the mentor gives him a simple rule. Don't confuse a full calendar with a full heart. He starts building real connection. One honest conversation a week, no masks. A friend, a sibling, a therapist, someone safe. He replaces the private drink with a private practice, journaling, walking, lifting, prayer, meditation, anything that lowers stress without numbness. And as he does, he realizes the biggest consequences aren't social, they're internal. Because the next topic isn't about who's around him, it's about how his mood splits in two, and that's where things get real. He starts noticing his day has two versions. There's the before version, tense shoulders, busy mind, stress buzzing like a phone that won't stop vibrating. And there's the after version, softer edges, slower thoughts, numbness that feels like relief. At first, that split feels normal, even helpful, like switching shoes after a long day. But then it becomes a dependence on a switch. He can't relax unless the switch flips. And that's when anxiety gets sharper, because his brain learns sober equals discomfort. The craving stops being occasional and starts being scheduled. He doesn't wait for a reason, he waits for the hour, and if something blocks the after, he gets restless like he's missing oxygen. That's the moment he should pay attention because it's bigger than alcohol, it's regulation. A mentor would explain it like this. He trained his nervous system to outsource calm. Instead of learning how to downshift naturally, he rented calm from a substance. So the body forgets how to return to baseline on its own. That's why the before starts feeling worse over time, not because life got harder, but because his system got less practiced. It's like relying on an elevator so long you get winded by one flight of stairs. And then he thinks, see, I need it. But what he needs isn't alcohol. What he needs is training. Training the body to handle stress again, training the brain to ride anxiety without panicking, because mood shouldn't require a chemical key. When it does, the key starts owning the lock, so he builds a new after that doesn't come in a bottle. He creates a decompression routine that signals safety to the brain, step by step. First, food and water, because hunger and dehydration make anxiety louder. Second, movement. 10 minutes of walking, stretching, or a quick workout to burn stress hormones fast. Third, temperature. Hot shower or cold splash because the body responds fast to physical cues. Fourth, sound. Music that calms him or a podcast that distracts him without overstimulating. If he wants structure, he tries a simple breathing pattern. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6, repeat. It sounds basic, but basic is powerful when repeated. Habits are built on boring consistency. He tracks the result because the brain respects proof. Craving hit at 7:30, routine done by 8 tau, craving down. And slowly, the after becomes something he can create, not something he has to buy. He also learns to catch the before earlier, before it becomes an emergency. Most people wait until stress is a wildfire, then they reach for alcohol like a fire extinguisher. But prevention is cheaper than repair. So he does micro check-ins during the day, a 2-minute pause at lunch, a short walk after work, a glass of water before decisions. He sets one boundary that lowers anxiety immediately: no doom scrolling at night. He replaces it with something lighter, a comedy clip, a book, a hobby, a conversation. If he wants books that help him understand emotions without drowning in them, he reads Permission to Feel, Mark Brackett, or Emotional Intelligence, Daniel Goleman. He's not trying to become a monk. He's trying to become someone who can feel without collapsing, because the before isn't the enemy, it's the signal, and signals are meant to be understood, not silenced. Then he faces a truth that hits hard. The split mood creates a split life. He starts planning around alcohol, what time he can drink, how he'll feel after, how he'll manage tomorrow. That's not freedom. That's scheduling around a dependency. So the mentor gives him a sharper goal. Make sober your default, not your obstacle. He starts praising himself for staying present, not for staying numb. He finds small, sober joys again. Food tastes richer, mornings feel cleaner, laughter feels real. And that's when relapse becomes easier to resist, because he has something to protect. Still, one question remains, and it's the question that changes everything. If his moods are split, what is he actually avoiding when he's sober? What feeling, what memory, what truth? Because that's exactly where the next topic goes. He keeps saying, I just like to relax, and sometimes that's true, but if he's honest, there's usually something underneath the alcohol, a feeling he doesn't want to name, a memory that still has teeth, a stress that never got resolved, just managed. And the brain, being clever, offers numbness as a shortcut around discomfort. That's why craving can hit hardest in silence, not in parties, because silence gives anxiety space to talk. So he drinks to quiet the voice, until the voice gets louder the next day. And slowly, he starts living in avoidance, thinking he's living in relief. A mentor would tell him, the thing you avoid doesn't disappear. It negotiates. It shows up as irritability, overthinking, insomnia, tight chest, sudden sadness. And when he drinks, he feels like he solved it, but he only postponed it. Avoidance is like stuffing trash into a closet. The room looks clean until the door won't close. Then the closet starts leaking into relationships, into work, into identity. He snaps at people, forgets things, loses motivation, feels numb. And the worst part, he starts believing that's just who he is. But it's not who he is, it's what he's been avoiding. So the mentor doesn't shame him, the mentor hands him a flashlight. Because once he sees the real problem, the habit loses its mystery. Here's a practical way to find the real reason without turning it into therapy homework. He asks one question before drinking: what am I trying not to feel right now? Then he answers with one word only: anger, loneliness, shame, fear, grief, pressure. One word, no essay. That one word is powerful because it names the enemy. Then he does something small that matches the word. If it's loneliness, text someone, join a group chat, call a friend, step outside. If it's anger, write a raw letter he'll never send, then tear it up. If it's grief, look at one photo, let the sadness breathe for 60 seconds. Because emotions that are acknowledged often soften. Emotions that are ignored often grow claws. And that tiny practice weakens relapse by giving the brain another option besides numbness. He also learns that avoidance can come from good people with successful lives. Some people drink because they're drowning in pressure, not failure. Always performing, always producing, always holding it together. So alcohol becomes the one place where they feel allowed to drop the mask. The mentor's message is blunt. If you need a substance to be yourself, you're not free yet. He starts building permission without alcohol. He schedules rest like a responsible adult, not like a guilty kid sneaking time. He gives himself one no productivity hour a day: walk, music, stretch, cook, laugh. And if he wants a guided way to process emotions, he uses journaling prompts or a therapist. Avoidance thrives in secrecy, healing thrives in honesty. And sometimes the avoided thing isn't emotion, it's meaning. He drinks because life feels flat, and numbness is easier than admitting emptiness. That's why he needs purpose-based rewards, not just don't drink rules. He sets one weekly goal that makes him proud: fitness, learning, volunteering, building something. He invests in a skill that grows identity: public speaking, coding, guitar, cooking. He reads Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, for purpose, and The Mountain Is You, Brianna Wiest, for self-sabotage awareness. He replaces relief with progress, because progress is a cleaner dopamine hit. And as motivation returns, the craving loses its bargaining power. Still, the mentor knows one more truth. Insight isn't enough. You need a replacement practice. Because once he sees what he's avoiding, the next question becomes obvious. What will he put in the bottle's place? He doesn't need a perfect life to change. He needs a better system. Because alcohol became a practice, a repeated way to handle stress, anxiety, and craving. So the smartest move is to replace it with another practice that gives real relief, not borrowed numbness. The mentor would say it like this: you don't delete a habit, you overwrite it. If the brain learned drink est reward, it needs a new reward that actually builds him. Not something miserable, not something fragile, something repeatable. And it has to feel good enough to compete, at least a little. Because when people relapse, it's often because their new life feels like punishment. So the plan is simple: keep the reward, change the route. That's how you retrain the reward system without turning your life into a war. He starts with a 2-minute rule for cravings because complexity kills consistency. When the urge hits, he does one tiny action before any alcohol decision: drink water, step outside, breathe slow. Then he chooses one of 3 replacements: move the body, feed the body, connect with a human. Movement, a brisk walk, push-ups, a quick set of squats, anything that burns stress hormones fast. Food, something with protein, Greek yogurt, eggs, a turkey sandwich, because hunger amplifies anxiety. Connection, a text that says, "Hey, I'm having a rough moment, can you talk for 5?" He keeps it almost stupidly simple on purpose, because in the moment of craving, the brain is not interested in philosophy. It wants a switch, and he's giving it a switch that doesn't steal tomorrow. And every time he does this, he's building identity, quietly, powerfully. Then he builds a nightly calm stack, like a playlist for the nervous system. Same time each night, same sequence, because habits love predictability. Dim the lights, phone away, shower, tea, stretch, journal, whatever fits his life. He makes his bedroom a recovery space, not a scrolling arena. If he struggles with sleep, he reads Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker, and tries basic sleep hygiene. Consistent bedtime, cool room, no caffeine late. If anxiety spikes, he uses a guided routine like box breathing or a short meditation. If he needs structure, he uses a workbook like the Anxiety and Phobia workbook, Edmund Bourne. He's not being dramatic, he's building a system that makes relapse less likely, because the best self-control is environmental design. And the better his sleep gets, the quieter his cravings get, almost like magic, but it's biology. He also upgrades his reward menu, because the brain needs pleasure that isn't poison. He lists 5 sober rewards that actually feel good. A favorite meal, a comedy show, a hot bath, a long walk, a hobby. He schedules one reward on purpose, not as a bribe, but as a replacement. He learns to enjoy the clean dopamine, finishing a workout, cooking something great, cleaning a space, completing a small project. Progress is addictive too, when he lets it be. He reads Atomic Habits, James Clear, and actually uses it. Make the good habit obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. He celebrates tiny wins without sarcasm, because sarcasm kills momentum. And he tracks the streak like a game, because the brain loves games. Not because he's childish, because the reward system responds to points and progress. And over time, he starts wanting clarity more than numbness, because clarity feels like power. But the mentor makes one thing crystal clear. He can't do this alone if he's drowning. If alcohol is tied to deep anxiety, trauma, depression, or dangerous withdrawal, professional help matters. Therapy, support groups, a doctor, those aren't weakness, they're strategy. He chooses one trusted person and tells them the truth in one sentence. I'm cutting back and I need support. He builds a relapse response plan that avoids shame. Hydrate, eat, sleep, call someone, reset the next day. Because shame is gasoline and he's done feeding the fire. He remembers one slip isn't a sentence, it's a signal. Signals can be studied, patterns can be changed, systems can be improved. And once he replaces the bottle with a practice, he realizes something bigger than sobriety is happening. He's not just changing a habit, he's reclaiming control, which makes the introduction hit harder, because now the viewer is ready to hear the truth. If he's made it this far, he already knows the uncomfortable truth. Alcohol was never just a drink. It was a system. One that trained his reward, shaped his habit, fed his craving, and sold numbness as relief. Now the real question is simple and it's sharp. What is he going to do with this knowledge? Use it or keep paying the same emotional debt? Tonight, he can run one clean experiment. Before any alcohol decision, he pauses for 10 minutes and asks, what am I actually trying not to feel? Then he chooses one replacement practice, movement, food, connection, breath, sleep, something real. Because the person who learns to handle stress without escaping becomes dangerous in the best way, calm, clear, and in control. So let him be honest with himself, and let you be honest too. Where does anxiety hit hardest? At night, after work, or when you're alone? What's your most common trigger? Stress, loneliness, anger, boredom, or pressure? And what would change in your life if your default coping wasn't numbness, but strength? If this video helped you see your pattern more clearly, drop a comment with one word, trigger, and write what yours is. That one word might be the first real step out of the loop. And if you want more mentor-style clarity like this, psychology, habits, identity, and the quiet truths that actually change your life, subscribe to Mind's Silent Echo and turn on notifications, because the next video goes even deeper, and you don't want to miss what comes after awareness.